And so I was let free, and the towns were not touched.
Wow.
And the Polish army headed north. I should
Incredible
give you
story.
a caveat as to what happened. That general eventually became King of Poland and is remembered as the greatest king in the history of the Polish nation.
Tell us about the king.
John Sobieski is the king who remembered not only as the greatest king in the history of Poland, but the king who rescued Austria, a nation who subsequently took over part of his domain.
Wow. Incredible story. The year now is 250 in the Common Era, and you are Herbert Ausubel.
You know, my family had started off in the spice trade. This is how we got the name Ausubel, Aleph Zayin Beis Aleph Lamed, which meant the hyssop of the Almighty. We were the spice merchants who delivered hyssop, I assume, for COVID rather than for money,
For honor. Yes.
to the temple in Jerusalem. The name was retained even after the temple was gone.
Hmm.
We left at the time of the Babylonian exile, but we did not return at the time Ezra 60 years later led the Jews back to Israel.
Hmm.
Instead, for whatever reason, my ancestors remained in Babylon, which then was conquered by the Persians, where one of my ancestors was assigned as an emissary for King Cyrus to the Lydian Empire, with the capital at a city called Sardis in Anatolia, which today would be called Turkey.
Hmm.
The family lived in Sardis, which apparently had a fairly large Jewish population because the synagogue, which has subsequently been excavated, was large enough for 2,000 people.
Hmm.
So I assume we had at least 2,000 Jews in the community. Sardis was destroyed by earthquake, at which point our family moved to Ephesus. Ephesus was the crown city of the Ionian world, the largest city in the Ionian world. There were perhaps 200,000 free men, as well as double that number of slaves living in the city. And the city contained a fairly large Jewish population. I have an apothecary shop. My family had moved from spice to its result, medicine.
You're
And
known
so-
as the father of medicine, aren't you?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I will tell you about the father of medicine. We were apothecaries. And so it came to a Passover Seder, and I had been away from home for a number of days. And my children, not to mention my wife, were anxious to know what I had learned during my time away and what I had been doing. And so I told her, and I told them, that I had gone to where medicine was now as a science or as an art having its beginnings, at the temple of Aesculapius.
Hmm. What did you see there?
As you enter, there is a big sign over the entryway which says, "None who enter shall die." I thought that rather audacious. I mean, there are people who pass away occasionally. So I was interested in learning more, since I had brought spices and medicines to the temple. And they had a wonderful system. First of all, they took a history, a careful history. Doctors should learn to take a careful history. And they'd learn what your problem was. You got this terrible ache in your shoulder and you can't move it, okay? Keep it in mind. They had a marvelous library. You could spend your hours reading and relaxing and contemplating the world. They had gymnasiums, hot spas, mud baths, things that seemed to have relaxed your nerves. Wonderful ideas. And at the end of a couple of weeks of this, they took you to the central temple itself, a very interesting building. Now, what I'm about to tell you, you're not to tell people, because it might louse up the whole thing. So this I learned from people on the inside. So children, hush, you don't tell this to the neighbors, because it'll destroy the meaning. each of the patients is brought to the ground floor and placed on a mat, and they're giving something to puff. And I studied this stuff. I says, this is an opiate. Shh, please. They are being put in a twilight zone. They don't know this, the patients that is, but each patient on his mat is next to a column in which there is an air pipe going to the upper floor where the priests are located, the priest doctors. He's got the whole chart in front of him. He knows this fellow's got a terribly sore shoulder. And he's telling him, you're falling into a deeper and deeper sleep. And when you wake up, your shoulder is going to feel just fine. And this goes on with each and every patient.
Hypnotism.
Well, I guess other people, someone in the East would have called it hypnotism. But this is what they're doing at the Temple of Asclepius, in addition to the hot baths and the warm packs and the cold packs and the library to relax your nerves and so forth.
Sounds like a great vacation.
So I said, do you mean to tell me? I mean, there must be some people, who die here. Please, hush. None who enter shall die. At least no one will know that they died. We have a little place in the back. You're never to reveal this. And there are, I hate to say it because many, 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 many people have come there. There are several hundred corpses in there. But the vast majority of the patients, assuming their aches and pains are up here, do very well. And so this is a Temple of Asclepius, which should not be revealed for another 1,800 years.
Is that where the symbol of medicine came from? The
Yes.
snake, the snake on the stick.
Snake on the stick comes from the Temple of Asclepius, and that's where medicine began.
It's always a pleasure to have you, Dr. Ausubel. Your
I'll be
history
delighted.
is very exciting and awesome. You'll come back anytime.
Invite me, and I shall be back to tell you more of my ancestors.
If I could be God for just one day, I would take the heart of man and mold it like clay. I would find love inside and shine it through the day. I would take hatred and throw it Now if I could be God for just one day, I would take the heart of man and mold it like clay. I would find love inside and shine it